The crystalline archives of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly into the darkness, their translucent walls pulsing with stored knowledge from a million civilizations. Junior archivist Solara traced her fingers along the shimmering data streams, her bioluminescent antennae twitching with excitement as she searched through the restricted sections. She wasn't supposed to be here. Third-tier archivists were limited to basic historical records and cultural studies. But something about the encrypted warning she'd stumbled across in the public archives had captured her curiosity. Earth remains forbidden. The humans must sleep. The deeper archives responded to her presence, illuminating a path through the towering crystal matrices. Her access card, borrowed from her supervisor during the sleep cycle, unlocked layers of information that hadn't been accessed in centuries. The crystalline walls hummed with ancient data, projecting holographic snippets of long-forgotten records. A particular crystal cluster caught her eye, its surface scarred with warning symbols in dozens of ancient languages. Solara pressed her hand against it, and the archive responded immediately. The air around her filled with swirling images, a blue-green world, wrapped in layers of automated defenses that made the Council's most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. Recording fragment 7249B, the archive announced in its melodious voice, "Humanity's declaration of rest, final transmission before the Great Sleep." The hologram shifted, revealing a human figure speaking to what appeared to be representatives from hundreds of species. The quality was deteriorated, but the words remained clear. "We have watched, we have guided, we have fought when necessary. But now we grow weary of the endless cycles of conflict. Our people have voted. We will sleep, and we will dream, and perhaps when we wake, the galaxy will have learned to walk its own path." Solara's antennae flickered rapidly as she processed this information. The humans hadn't retreated in defeat. They had chosen to step back. More records materialized. Scientific papers documenting human technological achievements, diplomatic records showing their role in stabilizing countless conflicts, and military assessments that made her inner membranes shiver. Security breach in Archive Section 7 Delta. The announcement echoed through the crystal corridors. Solara's heart raced. She had stayed too long. But before she could retreat, one final recording caught her attention. The hologram showed a massive human vessel, easily dwarfing the largest modern council ships. It moved with impossible grace for its size, its hull seeming to bend the very fabric of space around it. The recording ended with a simple note: "The last sentinel departs for Sol. Earth's sleep begins. Let them rest." Footsteps echoed through the archive as security approached. Solara quickly copied the essential data to her personal crystal, her hands trembling with both fear and excitement. She had found something extraordinary. Proof that the humans weren't just another sleeping race, but perhaps the most advanced species the galaxy had ever known. As she slipped away through the secondary corridors, her mind raced with implications. Why had the Council buried this information so deeply? What were they afraid of? The answers would have to wait. She could already hear the security drones scanning nearby sections. What Solara didn't know, as she hurried back to her quarters clutching her stolen data crystal, was that she wasn't the first to go searching for information about the sleeping giants of Earth. She was just the first to succeed. And her discovery would set in motion events that would make the galaxy remember why some rules should never be broken. The humans must sleep. But for how much longer? High Admiral Xerax stood on the command deck of the Krex flagship, Eternal Dominion, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he studied the holographic display of the solar system. The Forbidden Zone stretched before them, a tempting prize that had remained untouched for millennia. His cybernetic eye whirred softly, analyzing the defense patterns that his scientists had spent years decoding. The Council's emergency session has concluded. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. "They're demanding we withdraw immediately. They've threatened sanctions." Xerax's throat sacs pulsed with amusement. "Sanctions, while we hold the key to the most strategically valuable system in the galaxy. They grow more desperate by the hour. The invasion fleet stretched behind them, 5,000 ships strong, each bearing the distinctive crimson insignia of the Krex Empire. Their engineers had studied the ancient human defense grid for decades, analyzing every frequency, every pattern. They were certain they had found its weakness. "Display the latest simulation," Xarax commanded. The hologram shifted, showing their predicted path through the solar system's defenses. The automated sentinels that had deterred so many others would be blind to their approach, their sensors fooled by carefully crafted electromagnetic signatures. His lead scientist, Director Mevik, stepped forward. "The human defense grid operates on predictable patterns, Admiral. Basic automation, nothing more. The legends of their technological superiority are clearly exaggerated. No truly advanced civilization would rely on such simple systems." But something nagged at the Admiral's instincts. Why did they choose this system? Of all places to sleep, why here? Sentiment, perhaps, Mevik suggested, her scales shimmering under the holographic light. It is their homeworld, after all. Our psychological analysis suggests humans were highly emotional beings. It likely clouded their strategic judgment. The bridge crew worked efficiently around them, making final preparations for the invasion. They had trained for this moment, rehearsed every possibility. The fleet's weapon systems were specifically calibrated to overwhelm the ancient human defenses. "Signal from the Council ship approaching, Admiral," the communications officer interrupted. It's the High Chancellor himself." Xarax's throat sacs tightened. The Council was sending their leader. Perhaps they were more concerned than he'd anticipated. "On screen," he ordered, straightening his ceremonial armor. The aged face of High Chancellor Ven appeared before them, his crystalline features etched with worry. "Admiral Xarax, in the name of galactic peace, stand down. You don't understand what you're risking." "With respect, Chancellor," Xarax replied smoothly, "we understand perfectly. We've decoded their defenses. The humans are nothing but sleeping giants, and their time has passed. The galaxy needs this system's strategic position." The warning was not about their defenses. Ven's voice carried an edge of genuine fear. "What you see is not what you face. The humans." Xarax cut the transmission with a gesture. He had tired of warnings and myths. The future belonged to the Krex Empire, not to sleeping legends or cautious counselors. "All ships, battle formation," he commanded. "Begin the approach. Today we prove that the galaxy's greatest mystery is nothing more than an abandoned prize, waiting to be claimed." As the fleet moved forward, none of them noticed the small, ancient satellite they passed. Its surface, dark and seemingly deactivated, briefly flickered with light. Deep within its core, a signal began its long journey toward Earth, the first alert that the greatest rule of the galaxy was about to be broken. The humans would soon wake, and the Krex would learn why they were meant to sleep. 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean floor, in a chamber that stretched for kilometers, the first stasis pod hummed to life. Its surface, untouched by time, began to pulse with soft blue light. Inside, Chief Engineer Sarah Chen's eyes fluttered open for the first time in 15,000 years. The awakening protocols flooded her system with awareness. Her mind, preserved in perfect clarity, immediately began processing the situation. Emergency revival. External threat detected. The custodian protocol was initiating exactly as designed. "Status report," she spoke, her voice surprisingly steady as the pod's field dissolved around her. The chamber's AI responded immediately, projecting holographic displays throughout the vast space. "Outer defense grid breached. Hostile fleet approaching. 5,000 vessels. Technology level 4 civilization. Estimated arrival. 6 hours." Sarah stepped onto the chamber floor, her muscles responding perfectly thanks to the stasis field's preservation. Around her, other pods were activating. The engineering team she had personally selected millennia ago. They would be the first to wake, tasked with ensuring everything was ready for the general revival. "Show me the intruders," she commanded. The chamber's walls transformed into a massive display, showing the approaching Krex fleet. Their ships moved in precise formation, their energy signatures suggesting they thought they had successfully masked their approach. "They've only breached the outer grid," Dr. Marcus Reynolds asked as he emerged from his pod, immediately moving to check the facility's core systems. "The decoy grid is working exactly as planned." Sarah nodded, a slight smile playing at her lips. Humanity had known this day might come. The outer defense grid was intentionally designed to be decoded. Eventually, it kept the curious at bay while appearing advanced enough to be believable as their primary defense. The real defenses remained dormant, waiting. "Begin Phase 2 revival," Sarah ordered. Throughout the facility, thousands more pods began their awakening sequence. The military command structure would wake next, followed by the tactical teams. Multiple Council vessels detected at system edge, the AI reported. They appear to be attempting to warn the approaching fleet. "At least someone remembered why we went to sleep," Marcus commented, his hands dancing over the control interfaces. "Primary systems all green. The Sentinel fleet is ready for reactivation." Sarah walked to the chamber's central platform, where a three-dimensional map of Earth showed the status of all their hidden facilities. Across every continent, beneath every ocean, humanity's true power began to stir. "Alert from Moscow facility," the AI announced. "General Laura Santos is awake and assuming military command. Tactical assessment underway." The chamber hummed with increasing activity as more engineers woke, each moving to their assigned stations with practiced precision. They had rehearsed this thousands of times before entering stasis. Every scenario had been planned for, every contingency considered. "Signal from Luna Base," Marcus reported. "Defense matrix charging. They're ready to begin surface activation on your mark." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. They had chosen to sleep, to give the younger races a chance to grow and develop on their own. But they had never been defenseless, never unprepared. "The Krex fleet is scanning the surface," the AI updated. "They're detecting the energy signatures from our awakening." "Let them," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what was about to unfold. "It's time to remind the galaxy why they were warned." She raised her hand to the control interface, preparing to give the command that would reveal humanity's true face to their would-be invaders. "Begin surface activation. Wake the Sentinel fleet." Above them, across the Earth's surface, mountains began to move. Admiral Xerax watched in growing disbelief as his fleet's sensors registered massive energy spikes across Earth's surface. What had appeared to be natural formations, mountain ranges, deep sea trenches, ancient volcanic calderas, began to shift and change. "Impossible," Director Mevik whispered, her scales pale with shock. "The readings, these power signatures exceed anything in our database." The Pacific Ocean began to churn as something vast rose from its depths. Water cascaded off a hull that stretched for kilometers, its surface gleaming with patterns that seemed to bend light itself. Similar scenes played out across the planet as humanity's hidden forces revealed themselves. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, chaos erupted as sensor systems overloaded. Multiple vessels detecting. The tactical officer reported, his voice cracking. "Size classifications, they're beyond our scale. The smallest one is larger than our flagship." Deep beneath the Earth's surface, Sarah Chen stood at the primary control hub, orchestrating humanity's emergence. "Sentinel fleet reaching optimal positions," she reported to General Santos. "All systems nominal." The general's hologram nodded, her expression stern. "Begin the containment protocol. Minimal force. Let's show them why diplomacy was always our preferred choice." In orbit, the Krex fleet's formation began to waver as more human ships emerged. What they had dismissed as dormant satellites activated, revealing themselves as nodes in a vast defense network. Space itself seemed to ripple as ancient technologies, preserved perfectly through millennia of sleep, came online. "Admiral," The communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on frequencies we didn't know existed." A human figure appeared on the bridge's main display, General Santos, her uniform bearing symbols of authority that predated the Krek civilization itself. "This is your only warning," she stated simply. "You have breached quarantine protocols and activated our defense systems. Withdraw immediately." Sirex's cybernetic eye whirred frantically, trying to process the impossible data before him. The human vessels defied every principle of engineering he understood. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls seamlessly integrating with space in ways his scientists had only theorized about. "Launch the first wave," he commanded, his pride overwhelming his judgment. "Show them the might of the Krek's empire." The moment his ships opened fire, the true gap in their civilizations became apparent. The human vessels didn't dodge. They simply ceased to be where the attacks landed, appearing elsewhere as if space itself was their ally. Their counter-response came not as weapons fire, but as waves of energy that passed harmlessly through their own ships while rendering Krek's vessels completely inert. "Power systems failing," the tactical officer reported. "Weapons offline. Engines, everything's shutting down." From her control center, Sarah watched the situation unfold through the Sentinel fleet sensors. "Containment field stable," she reported. "Their fleet is secured. No casualties." The Krek ships hung motionless in space, their once proud formation now a suspended tableau of helplessness. Around them, human vessels moved into position with deliberate grace, their size and power a clear statement of just how outmatched the invaders had been from the start. "Admiral," Director Mevik said quietly, "I believe I understand now. The outer defense grid, the one we thought we decoded, it wasn't meant to keep others out." Tarax turned to her, his throat sacs pale with realization. "It was meant to protect them from us," she continued. "We never stood a chance, did we?" As if in answer, more human ships emerged from their hiding places across the solar system, each one a testament to why some powers were best left undisturbed. The galaxy's greatest rule had been broken, and now everyone would remember why it had existed in the first place. In the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, High Chancellor Venn watched the holographic feeds from the Sol system with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The human ships moved with impossible precision, their formations creating patterns that seemed to twist the very fabric of space-time. The archives weren't exaggerating. Junior Archivist Silara whispered from her new position beside the Chancellor. Her discovery of the human records had earned her an emergency promotion to Special Consultant. If anything, they understated human capabilities. The assembled council representatives watched as the humans systematically disabled the entire Krek's invasion fleet without destroying a single vessel. Their technology operated on principles that made the most advanced council scientists question everything they thought they knew about physics. On Earth, Sarah Chen and her engineering team had fully activated the planetary defense matrix. Holographic displays showed the status of the awakening civilization, millions of stasis pods bringing humanity back to consciousness in carefully planned sequences. "General Santos," Sarah reported, "the first wave of civilian pods is ready for activation. Should we proceed with the general awakening?" The general's hologram flickered thoughtfully. "Proceed, but maintain defense protocols at maximum. The Kreks won't be the last to test us, now that we're awake." In orbit, the disabled Krek's fleet hung suspended in fields of energy that defied their best attempts at analysis. Admiral Xerax stood on his powerless bridge, watching as small human vessels approached each Krek ship. Their sensor crews reported strange energy readings moments before artificial gravity shifted, indicating they were being moved. "They're arranging us," Director Mevik observed, her scientific curiosity overtaking her fear, like pieces on a game board. The Krek's ships were indeed being positioned in a precise pattern, though its purpose remained unclear. The answer came as a massive human vessel emerged from what appeared to be a fold in space itself. Unlike the military ships they'd seen so far, this one bore markings that the Krex xenologists recognized as diplomatic insignia. It was an embassy ship, preserved from humanity's golden age. Receiving transmission. The communications officer announced their systems apparently restored just enough to receive the message. It's being broadcast to our fleet and the Council simultaneously. A human diplomatic team appeared on screens across both fleets. Their spokesperson, a woman introduced as Ambassador Helena Torres, addressed them with calm authority. Your invasion fleet will be returned to Krex space, intact but disarmed. We are transmitting data packages to your scientists. Basic principles that will help you understand why today's confrontation was unnecessary. In the council chamber, displays lit up with incoming data streams. The assembled scientists gasped as they began processing the information. Fundamental theories about space, time, and energy that would advance their understanding by centuries. This is how they've always done it, Celera realized, connecting it to her archival discoveries. They don't conquer or destroy. They teach. The human ships continued their precise maneuvers, each movement a demonstration of technologies that the younger races had thought impossible. But there was no arrogance in their display, only measured competence and careful restraint. We understand the temptation that drew you here, Ambassador Torres continued. But Earth's location was never about strategic military value. We chose this system as our resting place because of its unique properties your scientists will now begin to understand. As if to emphasize her point, the massive embassy ship created what appeared to be a localized aurora in space, its lights forming complex patterns that the Krex sensors identified as mathematical equations, the underlying formulas for technologies they had never imagined possible. The galaxy was about to change, not through war or conquest, but through understanding. The humans were awake, and they had much to teach. News of humanity's awakening spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. On the Krex homeworld, the Imperial Palace erupted into chaos as reports arrived describing their fleet's complete neutralization. The Emperor's advisors scrambled to formulate a response as their military advantage evaporated overnight. Another transmission from our allies in the Centauri sector, a palisade reported nervously. They're dissolving our mutual defense pact. That's the 7th withdrawal today. The Emperor's scales shifted from their usual royal purple to a pale blue of distress. Their carefully constructed network of alliances, built on military strength and intimidation, was unraveling faster than anyone had predicted. Meanwhile, in Earth orbit, Sarah Chen supervised the integration of recovered alien technology with human systems. Her team had created an impromptu engineering hub aboard one of the recently activated Sentinel vessels, where they studied the technological progress of the younger races. Their basic principles are sound, she noted, examining a Krex engine core. They just took a different path than we did. More linear, less elegant, but still impressive for their age. The ship's AI displayed a holographic map showing the movement of vessels across the galaxy. Hundreds of diplomatic ships were departing various worlds, all headed toward Earth. The awakening of humanity had triggered a diplomatic rush as species both young and old sought to establish relations. In the Galactic Council chambers, Junior Archivist Celera found herself increasingly busy as more ancient records about humanity surfaced. Species that had maintained secret archives for millennia now brought forth their preserved knowledge, each record adding to the picture of why humans had been both respected and feared. Look at this, she called to High Chancellor Ven, her antennae quivering with excitement. Records from the Proxima archives. The humans didn't just have advanced technology. They had a fundamental understanding of universal principles that they shared freely with peaceful species. The Chancellor studied the ancient data streams. And now we're seeing why they chose to sleep, he mused. They knew the younger races needed to develop on their own, make their own discoveries. They were never hiding. They were waiting. Aboard the diplomatic vessel Stellar Horizon, Ambassador Torres received a steady stream of communications from across the galaxy. Many were apologies from species that had known about Earth's significance, but had remained silent. Others were requests for guidance from younger civilizations eager to learn. "We're receiving a priority message from the Krex Emperor," her communications officer reported. "He's requesting a private audience." Torrid smiled slightly. "No private audiences. Transparency was always our policy. Put him through on the open channel." The Emperor's image appeared before the diplomatic team, his scales still showing signs of distress. "Honorable humans," he began, his translator struggling with the formal tones. "Our actions were misguided. We seek to understand." "Understanding is exactly what we offer," Torres replied. "Not just to you, but to all species ready to learn. Our sleep was not about hiding our power. It was about giving others the chance to discover their own." Deep within the solar system's outer reaches, General Santos oversaw the activation of more human facilities. Massive structures, hidden in plain sight on various moons and asteroids, hummed to life. Each one represented a different aspect of human knowledge and achievement, preserved perfectly through their long sleep. "Defense Grid reports all sectors secure," her tactical officer announced. "The Krex fleet is ready for supervised return to their space. No signs of hostile activity from any sector." Santos nodded, watching as the galaxy adjusted to humanity's return. "They thought they were waking sleeping giants," she mused. "Instead, they woke teachers who had been waiting for students ready to learn." The ripples of change continued to spread. Humanity's awakening hadn't brought the war many had feared. Instead, it had brought something far more powerful: the promise of understanding. The return of the Krex fleet became a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. Instead of a humiliating procession of defeated ships, humanity orchestrated something entirely different. Each vessel was escorted by a human ship that projected educational holograms visible to all nearby systems, demonstrating principles of physics and technology that had been forgotten for millennia. Admiral Xerax stood on his bridge, watching as his flagship, Eternal Dominion, passed through the territory of former allies. The human vessel accompanying them, the Stellar Teacher, created stunning displays of mathematical beauty in space itself. His crew, initially bitter about their defeat, had become fascinated by the demonstrations. "These equations," Director Mevik breathed, her scientific instruments recording everything. "They're not just showing us technology. They're teaching us how to think differently about space itself." In the Galactic Council chambers, Junior Archivist Silara presented her findings to an unprecedented gathering of species. "The humans didn't just preserve their knowledge during the Great Sleep," she explained, her antennae glowing with excitement. "They used the time to perfect methods of sharing it." The assembled representatives watched in awe as she displayed records of humanity's previous encounters with developing civilizations. Each interaction showed the same pattern: teaching rather than conquering, guiding rather than controlling. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen's engineering team had completed the integration of their monitoring systems with the Galactic Communication Network. Holographic displays showed the status of thousands of developing civilizations, each one now benefiting from carefully measured exposure to human knowledge. "Energy spike detected in the Carina sector," her systems reported. "Two species approaching military conflict." Sarah smiled as she watched the response unfold. A human diplomatic vessel simply appeared in the contested space, its presence alone enough to make both sides pause. The ship began broadcasting educational sequences about resource sharing and sustainable development. "They'll figure it out," she noted to her team. "Just like we did, all those years ago." General Santos oversaw the final stages of the fleet's return from her command center on Luna Base. The massive facility, hidden beneath the moon's surface for thousands of years, had become a coordination hub for humanity's peacekeeping efforts. "The Krex Emperor's request for educational exchanges has been approved," her diplomatic officer reported. "Their scientists are already implementing the basic principles we shared, and the defense systems they were so proud of breaking through." Santos asked, a knowing smile on her face. "They finally realized it," the officer replied. "The outer grid wasn't just a decoy. It was a teaching tool. Breaking through it taught them fundamental principles they'll need for their next stage of development. Ambassador Torres stood in the newly reopened human embassy on the Galactic Council station, addressing representatives from hundreds of species. The chamber's walls displayed real-time images of human ships across the galaxy, each one engaged not in warfare, but in education. "We could have responded to the invasion with overwhelming force," she explained. "Instead, we chose to demonstrate why force is rarely the best solution. The universe is vast, but understanding bridges all distances." High Chancellor Van watched from his position beside her, finally understanding the true meaning of the ancient warnings. "We thought we were protecting the galaxy from you," he admitted. "But you were protecting us from ourselves, waiting until we were ready to learn." The Krex fleet finally reached their home system, forever changed. As the human escorts prepared to depart, Admiral Xarax requested one final transmission to Earth. The message was simple: "We understand now. Thank you for teaching instead of destroying." Across the galaxy, species young and old began to grasp what the humans had known all along: that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to nurture and guide. The sleeping giants had awakened not as conquerors, but as the teachers they had always been. 1 year after the awakening, Earth had transformed from a sleeping legend into the galaxy's greatest center of learning. The mountains that had once concealed humanity's ships now housed vast universities, their halls filled with students from thousands of species. The same technology that had preserved humans through their long sleep now helped bridge language and cultural barriers, allowing knowledge to flow freely. Sarah Chen stood in her favorite observation dome, atop the Pacific Engineering Academy, watching vessels from across the galaxy arrive and depart. Below the crystalline surface, she could see her former adversary, Director Mevik, teaching a class on quantum mechanics to a diverse group of students. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when we first woke up?" General Santos asked, joining her at the viewport. The general had traded her military uniform for diplomatic attire, though she still carried herself with the same precise grace. "Not exactly," Sarah admitted, "but I think this is what our ancestors hoped for when they chose to sleep. They knew we needed to step back, to let others find their own path. And now we can guide without controlling." In the Galactic Council's newly expanded chambers, Junior Archivist Silara, now Chief Historian of Human Relations, presented her latest findings to an eager audience. The crystalline archives had been fully integrated with human historical records, creating the most comprehensive database of knowledge the galaxy had ever seen. "The humans didn't just preserve their technology," she explained, her antennae glowing with enthusiasm. "They spent their sleep time advancing it, solving problems they knew future civilizations would face. Every challenge we encountered, they had already prepared a solution for." High Chancellor Van nodded in agreement. The Council itself had evolved, becoming less a political body and more a coordination center for galactic education. The humans had shown them a better way to govern, through understanding rather than authority. On the Krex homeworld, Admiral Xarax walked through the newly established Earth Science Institute, his cybernetic eye taking in the sight of his people working alongside human teachers. The military that had once threatened galactic peace now focused its resources on exploration and discovery. The latest deep space survey results are remarkable. Director Mevik reported, joining him in the observatory. "Using the principles the humans taught us, we've mapped regions we never knew existed. There's so much more to learn." Ambassador Torres, coordinating from the diplomatic hub in Geneva, reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Species that had been on the brink of war now collaborated on scientific projects. Civilizations that had hoarded knowledge now shared it freely, following humanity's example. "Another request for a learning center in the Andromeda sector," her aide reported. "That's the third one this week." "Approve it," Torres smiled, "and send them the full educational package. It's time they understood what their region of space can really offer them." In orbit above Earth, the Sentinel fleet remained vigilant, But its role had changed. The massive ships now served as mobile universities, traveling to civilizations that couldn't reach Earth, spreading knowledge to the farthest corners of the galaxy. Deep beneath the Pacific, in the chamber where she first awoke, Sarah initiated the final phase of humanity's emergence. The last stasis pods opened, releasing specialists in fields that the galaxy was now ready to understand. Each awakened human brought with them knowledge that had been preserved and refined through millennia of sleep. To think they feared us waking up, General Santos mused, watching the last pods open. They never understood that our sleep wasn't about hiding or waiting for war. It was about giving them time to be ready for peace. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The rule about never waking the humans hadn't been a warning of danger. It had been a reminder to let wisdom bloom in its own time. Now humanity was awake, and the universe was finally ready for everything they had to teach.